Welcome everyone. It's 1 p.m. and we would like to have an opportunity to share some news with all of you today about Centernet, but also hear from you and encourage you to get involved. My name is Michael Sinatra from the University of Montreal. I'm co-chair of Centernet with Nadia Porownik from Darmstadt University. Thank you, Nadia. And so we have what looks like a long agenda, but it's actually going to be just 5-10 minutes for us to go through some points, giving you some update, and then, as I said, really having an opportunity to exchange and encourage you to get involved in different ways. So briefly, as a reminder, Centernet was funded in 2007 and joined the ADHO family in 2012 as one of the constituent organizations, and its mission has always been from the beginning to obviously take into account the particularities of research centers, whether they are actually called a center or labs or regroupment. The labels obviously vary from one country to another. Over the years, we've had over 200 centers associated with our associations, really from all over the world in that range. The last few years obviously have brought new challenges to Centernet and its members, with people sort of obviously, as we all know the story with COVID, but we're in a kind of renewal phase at present, and so the idea is very much to sort of show you some of where we are going with our current leadership and executive council, and so as a kind of word of also thanks publicly, because Nadia, the functioning of the term is that co-chairs for Centernet have a 2-year term that overlap 1 year. So I've had the privilege and great pleasure to work with Nadia for the past year, and her term is coming to an end, representing us at ADHO literally today at midnight. It's a famous pumpkin moment. And then, there will be a call for election that I invite Paul Arthur, former chair of the board and also a member of Centernet, to tell us a little bit about.
Thank you very much, Michael, and thanks everyone for coming to this meeting. An annual general meeting will be held in the next few months, probably in September, and ahead of that there'll be announcements via familiar channels, including social media, the Centernet listserv, and other familiar online communications. And in advance of this AGM, there'll be a call for the key positions of Treasurer and Secretary of Centernet for 3-year terms, and also for the position of co-chair for a 2-year term. The incoming chair will serve alongside Michael Sinatra as our newest chair for Centernet in this staggered role. So please send expressions of interest or questions or any other correspondence you have inquiring about these roles or about Centernet in general to the email address, which we'll show again at the end of this session. And info about this process of nomination and election of officer positions will also be circulated in advance of the AGM. The second point here is we welcome new members and expressions of interest in joining the Executive Council of Centernet. This is a great way of being involved with a group of people representing centres and major groups from around the world, and like-minded people working in institutions who have the same kind of challenges that we might all face, as well as the opportunities to run successful groups, to think about issues of sustainability, about knowledge sharing in our very different contexts, and of course collaboration and mutual support for digital humanities endeavours across the world and in different contexts. And again, there'll be an announcement ahead of the AGM seeking these expressions of interest and explaining the process further. So please do consider these opportunities when you see them announced. Thank you.
Great, and my name is Kristen Mapes, and I joined the Executive Council in September, so look at where I am now. Simply to encourage you that you can join Centernet and get involved fairly quickly, and it's a really friendly bunch, so just a little plug for that. Specifically, I'm going to speak about 2 things. One is that Centernet was very pleased to be able to contribute to the bursary awards that were distributed in support of scholars at this conference. So Centernet contributed funds to support 2 additional bursaries beyond what the ADHO was already going to support. So we're interested in building out and extending an awards program that will support scholarship and presentation at this conference in future years, especially around scholarship and presentations that are reporting on the work of centers and discussing about the work of doing digital humanities work in DH centers and labs and however you like to call it. So we're planning to put together a more formal call and articulation of this new award in time for the call for proposals for next year's DH conference. Before that closes, you'll see this, so hopefully it's something that can be brought into one's mind as an opportunity that might help facilitate people to attend the DH conference next year and in future years. The second thing that I want to show, and I can come up, or Michael, if you want to be my Vanna White, that would be fine. Sorry, that was a very US reference. So one of the things that we are also working on in the refresh of Centernet that Michael mentioned at the beginning is redoing the website. So the current Centernet website, which is not what you're seeing here, has much information on it, but is not the most lean. And so what we're doing is, and we'll launch this by the AGM meeting, just reinvigorating it into a simple WordPress website. So this is supported by the ADHO website infrastructure, and we are currently adding information to it. So it's not at all complete yet, but what you'll be able to see here is information about how to join Centernet, and just a hint that we're working on refreshing our membership kind of subscription sign-up model, and we'll have more information about that at the general meeting. And there's also one of the things that's, in addition to information about us as an organization on the website, that we're looking to provide as sort of a service to the community is taking a probably outdated but robust list of centers that exists on the current, i.e. old website, and refreshing it and providing it as a space that can be updated and improved over time and available for the DH community of what locations around the world have DH centers. So that's something that we're hoping to additionally provide to the community. So more to come here, but we just wanted to show you that it's in progress and part of this larger simplification and our transparency building that we're working on. So.
Thank you. So one of the most visible activities, of course, that Centernet is involved with is the Day of DH. And that's probably a lot of people's way into Centernet. For me, that was my first involvement. And as you probably know, it's a mixture of online and in-person events. And recently, it's been a lot of Twitter kind of documentation of local events or activities that your lab is up to. But we've been experimenting a little bit with other apps like Telegram and Facebook as social media is fragmenting. And so it's long benefited from the work of many members of Centernet behind the scenes. So as much as anyone can post with the hashtag, there's always organizers and a host and a committee. And so that's a kind of lightweight way that you can get involved with Centernet if you have, ideas for ways that we can refresh the Day of DH, social media presence or in-person events or online activities that you'd like to see in the Day of DH. That's something that we'd very much like to hear from people about. And it's usually a small subcommittee. And then we usually have one or two universities or labs that are hosts for it and put together some larger events. So either of those ways, either if your lab or university would like to host, or if you have some ideas for online events, we're very much looking for people. And then of course, every year has a theme. And so if you have ideas for a theme, that's also very helpful.
the stage. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to my great colleagues who does the really, really good job at Centernet for growing the Edge centers, and it's precious for me to work with you together. Thank you. After these 2 years as a co-chair, I can say that meeting in person is really something. I would like to bring some things in relation to the ADHO initiative, and the innovation of this year is that we introduced the poster session for the students. Because most of us, we are like teachers, and we have the courses in DH in different like topics and focus. And sometimes it's so difficult to bring to the students the understanding of what DH is. So DH poster session was just aimed for bringing different perspectives on DH from different levels, from bachelor, master, and PhD students. It was the first bid, I think, but the next year I think it deserves to be continued and rescaled, and probably we can have something like exchanging ideas over it. This year it was pretty much based in TU Darmstadt, but I think that it has all the reasons to be continued and rescaled in terms of the global participation in this initiative. So I already told about these 3 categories of students who contributed, but also we think that it's open participation, and we need also people like the centers, these perspectives, to be involved in these activities. Another initiative refers to Brown Bag Hour. It was a discussion how to call it better. Please raise your hand who has some understanding of what is a brown bag. Oh, cool, because I thought that brown hour, it's more sharp to explain what's going on, but coffee and tea, but yeah, brown bag with lunch sandwich and something nice to eat. We thought to introduce the very important talks on how to develop the centers. And this initiative is aimed for sharing the ideas and experiences between the centers, labs, working groups of different scale. Sometimes it's uneasy, and I know about that from my previous experience. I used to be a chair for the Center for Digital Humanities in Russia, and I had a lot of questions to ask, and thanks to support of the other centers and organizations in the network of Centernet. So I had this understanding of where it's better probably to go to, and where I can shop, and what I can take from this networking for my center, and to bring this into the agenda for the discussion. So the brown bag hour is about a bit nice food and nice talks, and sharing these ideas in different formats. We used to have the mentorship program recently, and Paul was really much in the center of these activities. Brown Bag Hour is sort of enlightening talks, but with the same aim to bring mentors and the questions, the solutions together.
And another new initiative that we have is we're looking for a communications fellow. So it's probably somebody who's relatively early in their career because it's a very good networking opportunity. But to increase the communications, again, specifically about centers or between centers, because so much of the communications within digital humanities is more project-based or about the work of individual scholars. So it's a really great networking opportunity to kind of reach out to different centers, ask them what they're up to, what they want to showcase. And again, like a really good opportunity, I think, for a more junior scholar.
And then very briefly, as a final point, as you know, when you join a CO, you join either directly through the CO or through OUP. Right now, we are dependent on OUP, which has a limit of 1 year per subscriptions. And obviously, centers have slightly different, ways of, paying invoices or being involved in longer terms. So this fall, alongside the new website, we will be launching an opportunity for centers to sign up directly for membership through our own site, which will allow us to do for the first time a multi-year membership. So people will have an opportunity to sign for 1, 3, or 5 years at a go with a discounted rate. And we will be revisiting the rate where we currently have, that is to say, related to the size of your center. So if you have like 0 or 1 full-time members, and we've got a scaling of 1, 4, and then larger centers. So there will be also another update in order to make it easier for people, because we know sometimes you got to go through invoicing system in your university, so it's a bit different from the standard individual membership from that sense. So that will be something new coming to everyone this fall. And now, we'll be happy to take questions, comments, votes, names. By all means, there's the microphone that's going to go around the famous boom box that you're all familiar with now. So by all means, raise your hand, and I'll just put back the first slide. Don't worry, we're not going to start again, but that way you have the email address that Paul mentioned if you also want to reach out to us, after this presentation. There's one at the front. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So, could you tell me a little bit more about this Day of DH? Because it's on Twitter, but it's also at a location. What's that about?
So the host, there's definitely, on-campus events, and usually the university that's hosting the Day of DH, they have on-campus events, but other centers are totally welcome to have their own on-campus events. So, you don't need our approval to post on Twitter. And so if you have on-campus events that are planned for around the same time, what a lot of centers will do is kind of like move them to the day, or maybe a few of us cheat and do it 2 days early and post about it on Twitter that day. But so, usually there's at least 4 or 5 different centers that will do in-person events connected. And the hosting institution can do on-ground events, but they can also do online events. And so it's really, the hosting role is kind of calling on a center to reimagine what that day can be. Usually there's a certain number of centers that just kind of post every year on Twitter anyway. And so, I think part of the role of the host is to kind of like imagine a theme and think about one issue or one event that they think really stands for an issue that we're having in the digital humanities. And that's the most important aspect, I would say, of the Day of DH is like, kind of coming up with that headline that other people can then react to and say, I agree, I disagree, I take it in this way, through their own events or through Twitter.
All right, sounds cool.
I just wanted to add that this is like taking a snapshot of a moment in time each year, which is a fascinating historical thing to do. What were people doing on that day? And it might be small scale, it could be an individual activity. So there are personal reflections about, what someone was doing on their project work that day, right up to the scale of a centre wanting to promote, the work that it's done over the last year and invite others to connect with that activity or seek collaboration. So there's lots of different reasons, all good reasons for being involved in Day of DH.
So I'll just also add that we've always been conscious of the fact that centers, because we draw on a whole, sort of a range of countries and time zone, we've also had opportunities for people to send pre-recorded videos to the host institution that will then sort of run them, so that people are welcome to submit something because the time zone doesn't work. So it's really calling for hosts all over the world, and then we kind of adjust around that, what is the idea, and there's a general call for that way. So that would be this.
just little snapshot from the past. I think a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago, I can't remember exactly, we had this call to participate in the Day of DH, and we published on the website the announcements around the globe of these events, and they were of different scale and of different format. We had lectures and workshops. My former center in Perm in Russia organized conference on that day. So we could have this online streaming and online exchange of the ideas, but also it was pretty much about the on-site activities. So it's a big day, very symbolic day for the age communities, and Centernet offers this flashy thing to show that it's important and to keep in mind some important things. Usually we have, did we talk about that we usually introduce some sort of central topics for the Day of DH, and this year it was about humanizing data, how to implement data approach to make the globe more human-oriented.
All right. More questions? I have more questions, but if someone else has a question, I don't want to monopolize the microphone.
I don't see a hand for now, so go for it.
All right. Until this is brought from me, I will have it. Do you maybe have some examples of collaborations that have occurred as part of this global partnership that might be fun to share?
I can just say a few words about that, having been involved with Centernet for quite some time, from its beginning actually, as a constituent organisation. Originally it was established as an organisation that had chapters in different parts of the world, and the Asia Pacific chapter, where I sit, being in Australia, was immediately a way of connecting with many of our colleagues in newly organising associations such as the Japanese Association for Digital Humanities that was supported by centres and universities, as well as others. That's just one example. But just the structure of having centres being in contact with one another and having an open channel, and also being able to promote what they're doing or reach out with opportunities or queries, that just leads naturally to collaboration. So I think it's the framework itself that enables that. And then what you make of it as an individual centre or a member of a centre, is whatever you may want it to be. But I think it's important that the centres or groups or large projects often include a number of people. So this is not just about the leader of a centre or the director of a project. It's really the benefits are far broader, and that's why the focus is now shifting towards much more mentoring and really realising that centres have a role in the intellectual and professional development of staff.
And I'll add that we have a mailing list for members that sometimes do put out queries or working on a specific grant that need international partners on a given topic, and looking at Kim, linked open data could be one that one would be thinking about, and how would some people will either contribute very much in the spirit that Paul indicated, mentorship about something that they've done, and or wanting to be involved or highlighting some project that their centers have been associated with. So it's also fed by obviously sometimes the members themselves on that mailing list that people contribute to.
So the channel is a mailing list, or are there also other channels?
And the website is one of the views, and as Melanie mentioned, with the communication officer, as we now the Twitter association used to be, because 5 years ago Twitter was Twitter. There's obviously been less tweets, even this conference this week for a whole range of reasons we all will know. So it's also trying to reposition how would that communication fellow propose using Mastodon and other platform to reach a slightly more fragmented audience than before, but also the mailing list has been in some ways a consistent and it's one of the support that ADHO provides to all the CEOs, so it's maintained, and you don't get spam or anything of that sort. So it's certainly been useful in that sense.
Yeah.
And also we have in practice, understanding what is Centernet is the main thing to join or not to select this. And it's in our practice to address the questions and concerns of the potential contributors to Centernet and to the members of the network. So I think a couple of weeks ago I had the last conversation with the newly coming center as a part of Centernet. I won't disclose the detail of the what the center is, but they are pretty much very interested in what they can have from the connection with Centernet. And if you have particular questions in this regard, we can have the chat on it. And it was a pretty interesting conversation, actually, between different representatives of that particular center and the people who are responsible for budgeting, for different sort of managerial roles, for scholarship and different these tasks within the center. They were very much involved, and we just had this open discussion on Zoom. And yeah, I hope that they will join us, and we can have the fantastic collaboration this term.
All right. Final question. Oh, I'm sorry. Please.
Sorry.
Are you working with DH Tech at all? Because it seems like I went to their meetup yesterday, and they seem to have a lot of overlapping goals, be it more on the individual RSC level, but it seems like a no-brainer, maybe? Or maybe you
There was
think
some
different
conversation
ones?
over the banquet yesterday, actually, about, a conversation that will be pursued, after the well-deserved holidays that most people will have in the summer. But no, in the same way that on Monday there was a great workshop, Labs to Labs, that was also very specific in its, orientations, and I got the opportunity to speak to some of the organizers, and so we're looking into, seeing bridges and ways to sort of, continue that work and do it there. So, and certainly everyone is very, open, so that's, that's a great thing, and we'll continue reaching out and seeing, what can be done in different ways of collaboration.
All right. Well, thanks so much for all of these, for letting me have so many questions.
No, can I just add one more aspect, and that is that a typical way of engagement or collaboration that's happened over time is that a small group or a centre or even a project wants to scale up its activity. And Centernet's provided a way of having a forum of people who have had experience in doing exactly that in different contexts. Completely different context, obviously, but for example, in the past there's been some sharing of proposals that have been written at the institutional level to establish centres, or even, and perhaps just as importantly, at the point of review when, our centre's going to go through a review. Has anyone had an experience of this? What sort of arguments can we make for the success that we've had and why we want to continue? And there has been some really productive sharing of that kind of insight. So even if you don't have an established centre, it doesn't mean that you can't become part of Centernet. Even a small group or collaborative activity is very welcome. Yeah.
Nice.
Any other thoughts, comments, questions? We're still taking names as well, but you get the email on the screen. I'm conscious of time, and everybody wants to have another cup of coffee before the 2 p.m. Panel, so I don't see any hand raised. You're obviously very welcome to come and speak to us more informally. I know sometimes also the microphone is something else. Everyone just now or later during the coffee break, we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have about Centernet. Thank you for coming today for this information session.